My name is Melissa Tosetti. If you're just joining us, I'm the founder of The Savvy Life, and this is
Kevin Gibbons. I'm the Vice President and Cash Flow Planner for The Savvy Life.
And what The Savvy Life is, it's the name of our business, but it is this idea of creating a strong financial foundation while enjoying the journey. And doing that simply by being very purposeful with where you spend your time and where you spend your money. So it really, truly all boils down to purposefulness, which, going back to the conversation about how busy we get, that purposefulness can just...
It can fly out the window if you're not conscientious continuously.
Yeah, it can fly out the window. So the reason that I was particularly interested in talking about this topic is because the volume of clients I've worked with over the years, or the volume of people I've talked to after an event where I presented and I've talked about money, that have come up and talked about how they always felt like they were the only one. In most of my presentations, I confess my original story about how I got interested in this, in money skills, in this idea of money skills, and which I talked about 2 weeks ago in one of these sessions. And it's just that because there's an embarrassment around it, you might have credit card debt and not know how to get out, or and be churning, or just perpetually trying to save and not being able to save. There can be an embarrassment there that can be paralyzing.
Yeah. And I think this also goes back to part of your story that you've talked about in various speeches and is also in the book, is if you look at your cohorts, your peers, and you get the impression that they're doing very well and you're not, you can become embarrassed and not know how to talk to them. You figure there's something wrong with me, they're doing it.
Yeah.
And then like in your case, you found out, no, they were horribly in debt and they were playing part of the game as well.
Yeah.
And you had the presence of mind to say, this is not the way I want to live. I need to change this. And so I think that that's also a big part of the thing, is that if you look around, just because people appear to be doing well, they may be having the same struggles that you're having. And like Melissa just said, we see that a lot in the clients that we deal with, where we see a lot of the common themes that come up when we're dealing with clients. And so again, it comes back to the topic. You're not alone. There are a lot of people that have a lot of similar experiences and similar issues. Everybody's details are unique, but the overall themes, a lot of them are pretty common.
In about 4 weeks, I'll be getting on a plane and heading to Denver to do an event for, it's called Behind Every Leader, and it's for executive assistants. And I'm so excited to present there because that was one of the genesises of me having that experience of working in an environment and thinking that everybody else must have been like killing it financially, or that, how can they afford all these things? And this is a similar audience. When I worked for a private equity firm, the executives that we worked for, they were millionaires, and the higher levels, they were multi-millionaires. So they were driving, the greatest, latest cars, private planes, you name it. And to be an executive assistant in that environment, you start to think, like, the world starts to seem a little bit different. Like, wow, should everybody, should I be driving a BMW? Because things get kind of skewed, and then when you're in that reality, it's hard to know what the foundation is, and then so that can be rough, right? Comparing yourself to the executive level if you're at that level. And it can be rough if your peers are, again, either they might be savvy and you don't realize it. Maybe that they're really good about saving in this area, so they can really focus on fashion because that's something that they just love, and to them it's an art form. But you don't see that they don't dine out, right? They're saving their money for that. Yeah.
So Berliner, thank you for signing in. So they said, isn't that true? One of the primary rules of life is don't judge a book by its cover. And you're absolutely right. So there's that idea of not making that session. The other thing is, again, comes back to the idea, is don't feel that you're the only one that has these problems, that you're living life in a vacuum. That doesn't mean that you should go around sharing every last detail of your life with everybody, but at least you should realize that there's not something horribly wrong with you. Okay, everybody deals with these type of issues to one degree or other, and you're talking about people who make $15,000 a year to, as you said, people who make multiple millions of dollars a year. they feel the same thing. I just
Oh,
saw,
yeah.
I just saw an article where I think it was a Tesla engineer. This was featured in the San Francisco Chronicle, where a Tesla engineer was complaining that on his $165,000 a year salary, he couldn't afford to live in San Francisco.
Yep.
So.
Yeah. It's that I think that's the thing. It's depending on, you know, where you live, also what your interests are. But I would add to that. Part of this is a skill, right? We talk a lot about money skills. So part of it is a skill, knowing what actually to do. The other part of it is habits, right? It all just boils down to, if you've got negative spending habits, you're bored at work and you spend your time on Amazon Prime and you know, just to decompress, that's things that can get you into bad things. And so then you're down in that quagmire, and then again you feel like you're alone and you don't know how to get out of it. And so it can be a very, very slippery slope.
And again, like Leonard just said, we're in the habit of not sharing a lot of those details with others, so that's why you may feel that way. One of the nice things about our work is we see these common themes. So, and working with, you know, so many clients, we see these common themes over and over again. So when we say you're not alone, we've seen these before, you can really believe us, we've seen it. The other thing is, because we've seen so many of these themes in different ways, we've got a pretty good idea on how to address them. And so seeing that type of common theme gives us a great deal, I think, of experience to draw from in helping to deal with people.
Well, I would also add to that, with zero judgment, especially given my background, right? And I think that's one of the very common pieces of feedback that I often get. If I could show that, not sound like I'm bragging, I don't mean it to be, but it's just that there's never any judgment on my part. It's just, this is what the situation looks like. How on earth, based on my background, could I be judgmental? It's all just about, okay, that was then, this is now, let's figure out how to move forward. And I think that also falls into something that you and I talked about. I was recently going back and working on some of our previous caffeine sessions on YouTube, and we did one of my favorite sessions on your financial destiny. Do you remember that one?
Yes.
Yeah, and how often we think that, you know, when we're put on this earth, we would just have this, okay, so you're going to be a saver, you're going to be a spender, you're going to have a good balance of that. And we just have that as our persona. And we don't think
we're doomed to it.
And we're doomed to it. Yes, exactly. And we don't think that we can change that. And that kills me, because I really, truly see that. And we've had such phenomenal success in transforming folks that it's like I can't get enough exposure and jump on enough tables to scream to the world that you can change. Everybody can change their situation. Yeah.
I think that looking to what those common themes are, if you can find people in your social circle that have similar experiences, what that does is, one, it just gives you a lot more impetus to be able to change, because now you have a partner, and the whole buddy system approach to changing your behavior, I think, is really critical. We've seen that with people who go on diets, people who do workouts, physical training, things, any of those things. It's just, you know, having a buddy to help hold you accountable is so helpful. And just knowing that, again, that you're not alone, that you're not fighting this battle all by yourself. So, you know, realize that there are people out there that have similar situations. And the other thing about that is, because all these people have had similar situations, and a lot of them have fixed the solution, you know that a solution exists. In my previous life, I was a physicist, and one of the biggest goals of physicists is to be able to say a solution exists. They don't really care what the solution is. If we can identify that a solution exists, that's more than half the battle. Okay, because once you know that it exists, then it just becomes grind work to actually find the real thing. If it's truly unsolvable, that's a different issue. So if somebody else has already done this, you know that a solution exists. So then it's just a matter of figuring out what to do, and you know it's going to work because it worked for the other person.
Yeah. So 2 thoughts on this real quick. One is going back to that, having somebody for accountability, somebody that you can talk with. or whatever it is that you want to do that with. Actually, I have 3 thoughts. So the first thought is actually we post a couple of times a day on various social medias, and I posted something on Facebook yesterday or the day before, and it said, it said something to the effect of, start with 1 push-up, start with paying down 1 debt, start with, and it all went down. That thing got shared 24 times and ended up having, I think it was like 40 likes or something like that. And it's that concept of just starting with something. So I think that resonates with folks. That goes on with the comment about accountability. So you start, but then to be accountable to somebody. I think many of you know my husband owns a mixed martial arts school. It's called the Tosetti Institute of MMA and Fitness. My name is literally on the door, and I actually have an accountability buddy when it comes to working out, that even if she can't be there, the other coach, if she can't be there to work out with me before I go and I teach class, I have to like text her that I worked out, just because without it, I have long days. I'm tired.
But now you feel an obligation to, one, you feel an obligation to her on the case that if she is going to show up, you don't want to let her down. And 2, you know that however gentle and diplomatic she may be, she's going to give you what for if you don't.
She's relentless.
And
Love you, Coach Geraldine.
and so that is really huge. Having that type of partner is really key. One thing along that whole line is that if you don't have a close partner to do that on, this is where I think social media actually has a positive effect, is publicly state what you're going to do. You know, this week I'm going to commit to cooking food in 4 nights a week. All right. And at the end of the week, you post, hey, I did my 4 nights. And you'll have people out there that will say at the end of the week, will say, hey, did you do your 4 nights? If you publicly state your goal, you're much more likely to achieve it because you don't want to admit that you failed. And so whatever it takes to be successful and to make those habit changes, again, and what you're doing also is, by doing that, you're also inspiring other people to do the same thing. And this it works both ways, and it's incredibly powerful.
I agree. And we've seen that. I'm laughing because I recently made the personal decision, recently as in like Monday, made the personal decision that I wanted to amplify my workout for about a month or so, and said that I was going to do 50 burpees before Coach Geraldine actually shows up and I have to work out with her. And I wasn't going to say anything. And I wasn't going to say anything to Paul, my husband, who owns the school. I wasn't going to say anything to Coach Geraldine. And then the words came out of my mouth and I confessed it. And I'm so glad I did, because Wednesday I was tired. I was tired and she wasn't there, but I had told her that I was going to do it, and I did it, and I felt good for it. So it makes me laugh. Again, you're not alone. The other thing I want to mention really quick, going very much towards what you're talking about with social media, and I would say also just be very careful about the way you're wording, because and you know, if you have that snarky friends that might not be quite as encouraging, you might want to make sure that you set up your social media. They don't see that. You want only encouragers. But when I started to realize back in the day that I was missing the money skills, but I started to see that, you know, money's related, like the way to be purposeful in all these different areas. And I wanted to change the way I dressed, and I wanted to change the way I was traveling or my entertainment. I started to realize that there were people around me that I could emulate. And so I talked about this before, in dressing and trying to dress better and trying to stretch my fashion budget, I started to ask questions of this woman, Jessica, that I worked with, folks that seemed to just have really good money skills, or words that they said really resonated with me. I would ask them specific questions. So we're surrounded by folks that might be able to help us and be just in your back pocket, or there's always tons of articles on the Savvy Life on our website. In other words, that I think that you hit a point where you're done being in that paralysis, and you're ready to do something about it. And sometimes it's a baby step of just asking a friend. Sometimes it's going and starting to do the research online. Sometimes it's hiring somebody to do one-on-one work. But there are plenty of resources out there to help.
And it doesn't take much to take that first step after you get over the initial impetus step. The actual effort to do things is not nearly as overwhelming as just getting past the block.
Yeah. And it's the interesting thing. I was thinking specifically with this conversation, there's one client in particular that we've worked with in Atlanta that she just kept talking about how she always felt like she was alone. And then she actually referred her sister. We started working with her sister. And, kind of similar conversations, but we're also working with doctors and, attorneys, professors, the amount of professors that we've worked with at universities over the years. We've worked with the dean of a university. Money skills it's not something that is necessarily inherent, and especially in this day and age and the way that money moves now. In fact, we were talking the other day that even if you were taught about money as a kid, okay, so I just turned 50. So let's say when I was a kid, if I had been taught about money, I would have probably learned how to balance a checkbook, right? Well, how many people do you know that only use their checking account for all of their expenditures? It's not enough anymore. There's too many currencies. There's the way that money moves in and moves out. It's a whole other skill set. And so if you don't have it, you got to figure out how to get it. Otherwise, you're just the analogy I always use is you're going to be a pinball just bouncing from one expense to the next. And again, I don't care what your income looks like. You could $1 million a year and you're still bouncing around. And that almost becomes worse because of the volume and all the loss that can happen if that income goes away.
Well, the other thing is, on one hand, having a good income can be detrimental to your savvy money skills.
Yeah, we want to be very careful about saying this, but yes, exactly.
When I had a technical background. When I graduated from school, I got a fairly good paying job, and the money at that time that I was bringing in was significantly more than my expenses, to the point where I would get, this is back in the old days before they had direct deposit, I'd get a paycheck every week. I'd take the paychecks and I'd throw them in a drawer, and I wouldn't cash them. I wouldn't cash them for like 6 weeks because I didn't need the money. And then I'd go down and I'd go to the bank and I'd deposit 6 weeks worth of paychecks, and my balance would soar. And I'd think, whoa, I'm loaded, and I'd go blow money and all kinds of crazy things. And I never worried about it because I was always making more than I could possibly spend at that time. Well, the problem is you very easily suffer from like the goldfish syndrome. And your quality of life starts increasing, and you start buying more expensive toys and doing more things, and creating more bills, and suddenly you found out that, hey, I can spend more than I make. And because if you can coast for a long time in that idea of living well below your means, if you're not careful, you never develop those skills, and then when you need them, you get in trouble before you realize that you need them. So I don't want to say things like, rich people are completely horrible with their money. That's not true at all. What I'm saying is that if you're not careful, making more than having more than enough money to spend right now can lull you into a false sense of security and get you in trouble later on. So it isn't just the people who are struggling to pay their bills that can suffer from this, and the fact that everybody can have these same problems. Again, it comes back, regardless of what the income is, there are other people that are like you and that can share your experiences, either help you or you can work with them to help each other and get a handle on this.
Yeah, it's I had a thought and it just went that way. So talking about
making more than you can
spend.
Yes,
sorry, thank you. It gets very dangerous in that if you are a good earner and you start to hit that threshold where your expenses are hitting what your income is, very often, especially people that own their own businesses or are in some kind of commission-oriented business, what they'll often say is, I just need to make more. And that gets very, very dangerous. It gets very dangerous.
You start running on that treadmill and you're working your tail off and you're just treading water.
That was that thought that just came right back here. The other thing that I was going to mention about that is that I very often hear myself say that it's easy to save money when you have to.
Yes.
The challenge is to save money when there's plenty of it, and not even necessarily save it, but just be a little bit more purposeful with it, or not even a little bit more purposeful with it. And that's not to say, again, it's not about frugality whatsoever. It's just making sure that you're spending money on the things that are going to increase your quality of life rather than just distract you or create clutter.
And I think that is really the truth, is that no matter how much money or how little money you make, you want to be reflective and purposeful in how you use whatever you have. Even the wealthiest person doesn't need to fill their house with a bunch of junk.
Right.
And just because I can buy 10 Lamborghinis doesn't mean that I really should, unless I happen to be a really big car buff, and that's something I'm really into. You know, but again,
which we've worked with those.
We've worked with those people.
Not Lamborghinis, Corvettes.
and so but it comes down to, every dollar is precious. Every dollar should have a purpose. And no matter how much you make, if you're spending money, make sure that you're spending it with thoughtfulness and with intent. This is really what I want to spend my money on. This is going to make my life better.
Yeah.
This is going to head me in the direction that I want to go.
Because here's the deal. It sounds so official. The thing is, if you are making good money and you feel like there's just a bit of a bleed here and there, what would it mean to you if you tighten that up? And again, not tighten it up from a frugality standpoint, but from a purposefulness standpoint. Could that mean that you could travel more? Mm-hmm. Could that mean that maybe you could buff up your wardrobe if that's something that you wanted to do? Or if, depending on where you're at in your career and life, could that mean that if you got actually really serious, could you retire sooner? Mm-hmm. Right? So it's a purposefulness. It's about working towards something and spending towards something rather than just
pinballing around. Yeah.
So it's a fun subject. I always think about spending plans are it's the plan for how you want to fund the life that you want to live. Mm-hmm. Doesn't that sound much more pleasant than the word budget?
Yeah, which is why we refer to it that way.
We call them spending plans. That is the intention.
It's and I keep coming back to. I don't want to flog a dead subject on it, but this is really powerful because so many people again feel that they're the only ones that have this problem. And what was it? It's either Tolstoy or Dostoevsky. I think it was Dostoevsky that said that all happy families are the same, but all miserable families are different in their own different ways. I'm completely butchering that.
Yeah, I haven't heard that before.
I'll look it up and we'll get the reference to it. But I guess the point that I'm making is that everybody has some type of issue with how they manage the money, no matter how good they are. Nobody is perfect. A lot of the basic principles are the same. The details are where things differ. And so I don't want to minimize the uniqueness of anybody's one situation. But the fact of the matter is you can take most people's situations and put them in several broad categories. And there are other people who have faced similar situations, and we or other professionals have helped them, or they've managed to solve it on their own. There are solutions out there. There are other people like you. Don't feel so isolated and so despondent that nobody else is going through what I'm going through. Most of these things have some common threads and some fairly well understood solutions.
Mm-hmm. There's a famous thought leader, Marie Forleo, and her new book is actually called "Everything is Figureoutable," which is a phrase that her mom used to always say. Okay. Everything is figureoutable, and that's exactly it. And so, I would say that if you're watching this, whether you're watching us live or you're going to watch us on YouTube a little bit later, and this is something that is resonating with you, there's a couple of steps you can take, and one step may be just to start to research money skills, right? There's so many different resources out there. You've got the Dave Ramseys, you've got the Susie Ormond's, you've got the type of the work that we do. So you have to go. You know what I liken it to? Whenever somebody asks us for, maybe they live in a different state or a different city and they ask us for advice on trying to find a martial arts school, I always say, well, go in and ask for a free week. Go in and or at least a free class, because it's not the martial art, it's the instructor. Yeah. And so all of us teach pretty much the same thing. It's who are you going to resonate with? Who do you feel comfortable with and not, if you're reading their information and you start to tighten up, it's probably not the solution for you, right? Yeah. And start with the articles or start with the YouTube videos. And if you feel like, wow, no, I'm still overwhelmed, then that's when you're going to pick up the phone and you're going to try, pick one of them to get some one-on-one work to get you where you need to be.
And you'll find, again, what it comes down to is finding somebody whose message resonates with you and whose style you can embrace. Because if those two things don't happen, you're kind of setting yourself up for failure. It's going to be very hard to succeed. And if those two things do happen, then you're going to be inspired to continue with the process. It's going to be meaningful for you, and you will be enthusiastic about working towards that. And while we obviously want as much business as we can handle, at the end of the day, we want happy clients and we want people to be happy with their financial situation. If our message doesn't resonate with you and somebody else does, go to them. Find the people that are going to help you. Hopefully it'll be us, but if it's not, we can accept that.
Our mission is to fix the United States economy from the ground up. So that being said, I had another thought. I went out there. What did I eat for breakfast, or did I not have enough coffee this morning? I was going to say something about. Well, actually, this is a perfect opportunity to go into different resources. So if you'd like to learn more about the particular work that we do, we are on almost all the social medias, the Instagrams, Facebook, YouTube. We do these videos just about every week, and we've got our backlog on YouTube. You can go check us out. Please like and subscribe and share them. And then on our website, thesavvylife.com, we publish an article every single week. You can also sign up for our newsletter.
The list, yes.
And can you explain what the list is?
So the list is a weekly newsletter that will contain our new article, and then it also contains usually 3 activities that you can perform that will help you to lead a savvy life. They're tasks or goals, just things that are fairly small and easy to be accomplished, usually within 1 week. Some of them are stretched out to like a 3-week challenge. But the idea is that these are small things that if you implement these tasks, they will help you to be more purposeful in your spending of money. And then there's also links to the video and to previous articles and stuff. So it doesn't cost anything. We don't share our list with anybody. So it's just a chance for you to get a weekly reminder of some things that will help you to lead a more purposeful, savvy life and see what our newest articles are.
So it's interesting. I was thinking about this. The intention of the list is to just give you something. Just do this, right? There's so much information out there, but it's philosophical. This idea of this is like do this this week, because sometimes at the end of the day you don't want to figure stuff out. Even if it's Figureoutable. Yeah. You want to just be told what to do. Yeah. Tell me what to do. Yeah. And that's based off of came up with the idea of the list based off of a fantastic Tim Ferriss podcast that I did, and I wish I could remember the name of the person that came up with it, but I promise you if you're watching this on YouTube, it'll be down in the comments, and I'll link to that. Yeah. It's a great podcast. Yeah. Anyway, I quoted all these people. There's so many resources out there to pull from. Yeah. Is that it?
Yes. Have we decided what we're going to talk about next Thursday, which is the 18th?
So one of the things that we might touch on is Thank you very much. We might touch on the power of a monkey list.
What is a monkey list?
A monkey list is a list of all the monkeys on your back that are bothering you and weighing you down. I had a recent experience of the freeing power of creating a monkey list and then knocking those things off, and I just want to share that with you guys.
So there's your teaser.
Oh, thank you. Take care. Appreciate it.
And we'll talk about that next Thursday at 3 o'clock Pacific time, and that is the 18th.
And I promise to have 3 cups of coffee before that session. I promise. All right.
Thank you all very much.
All right. Thanks a lot. See you guys next week.
Bye.